Welcome to Orange Room Conversations, a space dedicated to vibrant conversations that's full of joy, laughter, happiness, and togetherness. Get comfortable, kick your shoes off, sit back, grab some coffee, tea, or a good glass of wine, and let's settle in to discuss love, relationships, grief, loss, sex, friendships, intimacy, spirituality, and family. An atmosphere that welcomes vulnerability and transparency. Welcome, my friend, to Orange Room Conversations. Come on. Hi. Welcome to Orange Room Conversations. I am so glad to be back with you on today. I want to give a shout out to everyone who watched our very first episode, Love, Lust, and Attraction. Thank you so very much for your support. Thank you for viewing it, for sharing it, for telling somebody about it. So we're so excited. It had a good reception. People enjoyed it. I got a lot of different feedback on it. So I am excited for what Orange Room Conversations is going to be about, what it's going to do, and how hopefully it's going to uplift and empower you and just create more dialogue. I was so glad to hear back how people continue the dialogue around lust, love, and attraction, and discussed among themselves what they thought about it. So we're getting ready to get into it with our second episode, which is going to be on accountability. So that's our topic for today, accountability. And what does accountability look like? Look like for yourself, look like for your other relationships, and also what does accountability look like in our spiritual lives, or in the spiritual lives of leaders that we are a part of their ministry or their organization, on our jobs. What does accountability look like? So first of all, right off the bat, I will tell you, in my younger days, before there was therapy, before there was really a desire to be better than I had been, you weren't going to hold me accountable for nothing. Nothing more than what Priscilla wanted to be accountable for. But over time, I have learned that taking accountability is really where your growth starts. And it honestly starts with you. You have to be able to tell yourself the truth about who you are, what you have done, what you didn't do, and then own it. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, you have to own it. I know sometimes, just me personally speaking, I've done some things that have hurt people, knowingly, because I was all about me, what I wanted, what I needed, and it wasn't about the other person. So I have intentionally hurt people before, and unknowingly hurt people. But I grew, and I hope that we can, as individuals, whether you might not be into it in your 20s, but as we move through our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, that we can learn the importance of taking accountability for the things that we say with our words, the things that we do with our actions, and our behavior, because it impacts not only ourselves, but also it impacts those around us and the people that we love. So accountability, what does self accountability look like in your life? A lot of people may say, well, if I have a particular project that I'm doing and I don't meet the deadline, that I don't place blame on someone else or make excuses for why it wasn't completed by the time that it was due. But I also think it can go a little deeper, because if you see that as a pattern, that every time that you didn't fulfill an obligation, that you wasn't quote unquote impeccable with your word, that it some way somehow becomes a result of something that someone else did, or that you wasn't given this. If that is a repeating pattern, and I think that's the key word, if it is a repeating pattern, then it may speak to some things that you need to work on yourself. Because I know that's when you get into accountability, that's where transparency and vulnerability can sometimes come to the forefront. Because to admit that I dropped the ball, or I was distracted, or I really didn't put in much effort to that particular situation, relationship, project, what have you, that means that you have to be transparent and say, hey, I messed up. And a lot of times we don't like to do that. We have an image of ourselves that we like to portray, sometimes to ourselves, and we like to portray it to others. And other people can see that, that's not hitting the mark. But we keep moving with this. We may call it a mask, we may call it a facade, but we're not yet holding ourselves accountable to the things we do or do not do. And it can cause issues in our intimate relationships and in our friendships, because to say that I didn't meet the mark, it can sometimes make us feel less than, that there is something inherently wrong with us. And that may not always be the case. Sometimes we just have to be able to admit that, one, I really didn't even want to be a part of this. I didn't even want to do this. And so by not being able to use our words and say our truth, we wind up doing things or participating in things that we didn't give our whole effort to. But it stems from, we didn't know how to say no from the beginning. We didn't know how to say I won't be able to from the beginning. So when what we were supposed to do either fails, doesn't come off, or it wasn't successful, instead of us taking accountability, we will make excuses. I'll make excuses for all the reasons why it didn't happen, when the truth is I didn't want to do it in the first place. And it would have saved the outcome and maybe other people's expectations, a lot of injury, hopefully not pain, but a lot of injury or disappointment. If I had been truthful, or if you had been truthful, we had been truthful from the beginning, that this just wasn't something for me. But I think we have to be accountable to our truth. We have to be accountable to how we truly feel in a situation, and be careful in how we speak. We can't always be so quick to say, hey, yes, me. I'm the one, but we haven't yet checked in with ourselves to see if we really are the one. And we do that in relationships, in our intimate relationships. We'll be like, oh, you calling me, I'm feeling you. But, something is just not kicking. I'm feeling like we may be better off as friends. But we want to show up as being the one to desire you, the one to, have your interest, hold your interest. But when we really truthfully know that, I just think we're going to be good friends, but we won't use our words to say that. We may lead people on, or people may get the wrong impressions by our actions, by our behavior. And then down the line, people get hurt. People become disillusioned. And it's because we were accountable to how we really felt about this situation or about this individual or about this relationship from the beginning. So I think holding ourselves accountable to one, check in with, what do you really want to do, Priscilla? What do you really want to do? Um, Orange Room, friends and family, what do you really want to say about the situation or about this individual? And does it align with your truth in this moment or in this season in your life? And be willing to make the hard decisions. Be willing to say the hard things to yourself before you can then say it to someone else, because we can't be fully present and available to someone if we're not that for ourselves. So, how do you say accountability in a relationship? I'm divorced, and my divorce came about because I fell in love with Annie, and it took, during that time I could have said, and I did say that, my ex-husband wasn't this, or he wasn't loving me this way or that way, and all of that could have been true. But I had to eventually take accountability for my part and for what I did or didn't do and for my choices. Now that was hard, Priscilla. It's always been you. But no, it was me. Because at that time, 20 something years ago, Priscilla was a 26-year-old who was married, very involved in the church, had responsibilities out the yin yang, had two small children. But Priscilla wasn't happy. She had a form of happiness, but if I had to be true to myself, I wanted more. I needed more. And in that, I hurt someone very, very dear to me. And I hurt people's expectations and perception of me. But at that time, I was about me, wanting to do me, gonna be about me, and me was me. And over the years of really doing some self work, I had to take accountability that it wasn't all one person, it was me. And I didn't show up. And I, at times, didn't intend to show up because I had found a love and an individual who, as people like to say, checked all your boxes. I don't think anyone checks all of a person's boxes. Some boxes we take off ourselves and put on, and so we're ever changing. But I had fallen in love with someone who I could see a future with. I desired a future with. And I had to be accountable for the actions and the things that I did, and take accountability that my actions and my behaviors, there was going to be a fallout from it. And it was. But I had to also be accountable for the consequences that came from making those decisions. I always tell my children that, you make your bed, you make it, but be willing to lie in it, with the decisions that you choose to make. Because you can always make a new decision, but you have to deal with the consequences of those decisions. So sometimes in relationships, we want to do the right thing. We desire to do the right thing. But sometimes doing the right thing is hard. But being accountable that yes, it was hard. It was hard to hurt someone's feelings. It was hard to disappoint someone into what they had hoped or believed a situation or a relationship could be. But it's not for me. And that doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make you wrong. Just right now, it's just not, it's not what it could be or can be. And we choose those decisions. Now I could have ran on, and what I was believing and hoping for didn't work out. But I would have had to be accountable for that decision I made. But thank goodness that it did work out, and it is working out. But that is how sometimes you have to take accountability in your intimate and personal relationships, with individuals, with family. Sometimes there's a misunderstanding around conversations, family relationships, but we have to be accountable for how we choose to show up in people's lives, and also take accountability for what we allow. What are you allowing in your life that doesn't grow you, doesn't uplift you, doesn't empower you, doesn't add to your life? And are you accountable for the energy and the atmosphere that you allow in your space? We have to guard our peace. We have to guard our minds. We have to guard our hearts so that we create the life that we desire. We create the environment that sustains us, that maintains us, and that fuels us to be a better version of ourselves. And it starts with having accountability for what we say. And that's hard, because some people, they rather tell you a lie quick and in a hurry to get you on and out the way. But that doesn't grow you. That pacifies that situation for the moment. But because I can only speak for me, but sometimes those lies and those manipulations and those gaslighting, situations, they come back around to you. And you have to be accountable for your part, for what I said, what I didn't say, for what I implied, but didn't mean. And that takes time, that takes growth. And God knows it takes energy. It takes energy. But for me personally, when I began to take accountability for the things that I had done in the past and the things that sometimes I mess up and do now, I have to sit with myself, especially now because I'm intentional about how I want to show up. I'm intentional about how I want my life to be and how I want other people to experience me. It's not so much about the mask and the facade and the pretentiousness of wanting to be a certain way, look a certain way. I want to be real. And I believe we in the depths of our hearts, we want to have real relationship with ourselves and with other people. But we have to tell ourselves the truth. And we have to be accountable that, what, in that friendship, I was lazy. Yeah, and I just thought you were going to be there. And I just thought that, anytime, but I didn't put forth any effort in nurturing and maintaining that friendship or that relationship or that cousinship. I just thought it would be there. So I didn't show up 100%. I thought I would show up 20 and you do the rest. But you have to be accountable to say, what? I was 20%. And I could have been more. But right in that moment, I didn't choose to be. And that's on me. But I want to be better. And will you give me the opportunity to be better? And those are hard conversations. Vulnerability. Honey, put on your vulnerability panties and your transparency bra. Because we have to show up. We hope to show up with all of us to the table. And that includes bringing our friends, vulnerability, transparency, and accountability to the table. So, I know I've been talking about a little of relationship, me personally, but how do we hold our leaders accountable? Should we? Do we have the right to? Is it any of our business? And as a leader, I don't know if you consider yourself a leader in your church or in your business or in your family. Um, do people have the right or the access to you to hold you accountability for the things that you may do, don't do, say? And what would the fallout of that look like? I know they have the saying about who gonna check me, boo? Who gonna check me, boo? Sometimes you need some people in your life, the right people, who can check you. I have a couple of them. I don't like them all the time. They be trying to tell me about myself. But sometimes, they got to pull my coattail. They got to tell me I spoke out of turn. And this is a big one. My tone. My tone was harsh. Maybe I meant it for it to be, and maybe I did. I don't know. But I have to be accountable for how a person received me. And I had a problem with apologizing. You know how you can sometimes say, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if that hurt you. You're so up here with it. It's just an automatic. You see little kids on the playground, somebody take somebody to, I'm sorry. Teacher makes them say, I'm sorry. But they didn't feel it. They didn't feel it. I had to do my work to feel it. To honestly say from a pure place that, well, I'm going to tell you. I can say that if what I said or what I did hurt you, I am sorry for that. I apologize for that. As to how you received it, how you took it. I can't change that, but I'm sorry that it hurt you. That does not necessarily mean that I didn't mean what I said. And that's my truth. And so we can continue to discuss what I said. I can apologize for my delivery and how my delivery impacted you. But sometimes it doesn't change that I really meant what I said. And I can hold myself accountable in that moment. Even though you're hurt, even though you don't understand, even though you took it the wrong way, I still have to be accountable to what my truth is in that situation. And I spoke it from a place of truth, but I can apologize that its impact hurt you, but it's still my truth. And it's still your truth. So we can, and when you do that apology, usually, because I've done it with Annie, that was my first training ground, because Annie would be like, that hurt my feelings. I didn't like your tone about that, And she may wait a day or two. I'm going on about my life. But then here she come with this, I didn't like your tone. That was really rude. I'm like, what? What you talking about? I done forgot all about that. But the old me would be like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I just said that so you could go on. But then she would still be hurt. She would still be impacted. And I would struggle sometimes. Well, I meant what I said. And if I back up from what I said, that makes me a lie to myself. And I'm learning how not to be a lie to myself. So how in therapy, how can I truly apologize for this and how she heard it, but still honor that that's how I saw it. That's how I meant, the words that I said. So that was my first training ground. And I learned how to do that. And we would have, that would further our disagreement or what have you, or our misunderstanding on a situation. And then she sometimes would come back and be like, well, this is what I heard. And I would say, okay, but that's not what I meant. That wasn't my intention. And I apologized that my tone was short, aggressive, you know. But my words were that, but I maybe didn't deliver them the best way. And then I learned how to do that in friendships because, I had them, who gonna check me, boo? And then my friend would be like, I'm getting ready to check you, boo. And I'd be like, say what? And they would. They were like, Priscilla, I don't really think that it's it's working. I'm not getting what I need from you in a friendship. And I'd be like, wait a minute. I'm the one that's supposed to be saying that to people, because I feel like I'm showing up, I'm present, I'm doing everything. And they would be like, no, I don't get the time that I would like to spend with you and or talk with you, or you kind of brush me off, and then I have to hold myself accountable. Well, Priscilla, how have you been checking in on this friendship, on this relationship that you claim is so dear to you? What have you done lately? How have you reached out? How have you let this person know that they matter to you? And I would be like, I could have done better. And I will do better. And thank you for bringing that to my attention and holding me accountable. Leadership. Well, that's a touchy situation. But I do think, I'll speak from a church standpoint because that was my training ground also. I come from, my grandmother pastored two churches for over 60 years. She had a lot of downline as far as ministers and deacon board and board of trustees. And so I got to see how her leadership was held accountable and how she herself at times was held accountable for things that she did or didn't do, and how the conversations went. But I also know that based on the organization that she was in, because sometimes you can have a leader that's the top of the chain, that there is no one above them to hold them accountable because they've structured it so that they're at the top. So you have lay people who are trying to hold the leader accountable and they can't, because it starts with me, it ends with me. But in watching my grandmother, she always had a bishop board outside of her church, other evangelists that, they were there. They were there to hold her accountable, and that they were people that she could, because sometimes leaders need other leaders, and other leaders, you need to create an environment where you have leaders that have your best interest at heart, that want to see you be successful, who are not in competition with you, who don't have jealousy towards your organization, ministry, or what have you, church. And so when things go awry in leaders' lives for whatever reason, that there needs to be a sector of leaders who can speak to you, can hold you accountable to the missteps and the mistakes that you may have in your life, that will be able to say, apostle or bishop, that, let us talk about the situation that's going on, or I've been hearing some things of people. And the thing is, you have to be open to hearing it. You have to be open to what is transpiring so that you can bring accountability not only to yourself, but to those who you mentor, those who are watching you from afar, so that your witness, your testimony, your witness doesn't come into unfavorable light. So I do believe that leaders must be held accountable to themselves and also to other leaders that are around them, and have a sacredness of people, not people who will co-sign. There's a difference. There's a huge difference. And that rolls all the way back down to friendships, to family, to intimate relationships. You can't have people in your corner who will co-sign your dysfunction, because it will breed more dysfunction and toxicity. And people will continue, it becomes a cesspool. And I don't think any true leader wants to create a cesspool of unaccountability. That accountability, you have to lead from example, and accountability starts with you. It starts with me. And we have to be able to admit our wrongdoings. We have to be able to admit that I was caught up in a situation. It wasn't right. It wasn't right. And I can, in some, senses, I consider myself a leader. It wasn't right, some of the things that I did. It wasn't right when my situation took place. I was the president of the Young People's Department. I was working in two churches. I had downline. I was over a choir. I had to be held accountable to what I did, for the choices I made. And I know this is old school. There was a time when I had to be sat down as a leader. Because as they would say, your life is not up to par. And it wasn't. But I had to be accountable until I got things worked out for me. And that I got things aligned with me, until I got truthful about what I had did. Now, that's what I did. That's not who I am. And that's the difference. And so having people in your corner that will acknowledge that, yes, your foot may have slipped. Yes, you may have misspoken, and did some things and said some things that was hurtful and injurious, or caused a ruckus and a tear. But that's not who you are. And when people know the heart of you, and you allow yourself to be vulnerable and transparent, and yes, we go through a phase where we go sugarcoat. We may tell a couple of lies. We may put it off on somebody else. But eventually do your work to tell the truth about you and your part and what you did and didn't do. And be willing to ask for forgiveness, to say, I'm sorry that I made a mistake. People will be able to respect your leadership abilities when they first see you model the right way to come back from a thing. It ain't easy. It ain't. But it's doable and it's right. So I hope you've enjoyed this little discussion with me on accountability. I just want to leave a couple of thoughts with you that you can marinate on, have further discussions on. How do you hold you accountable to you? How are you impeccable with your word to you before you can be impeccable with your word to others? How are you being accountable for how individuals experience you? From your partner, your spouse, to your family, and to your friends. How are you accountable for how they experience you? Not saying that all your days are going to be hunky-dory and glorious, but how are they experiencing you? And do you check in to say, am I being the friend, the partner, the daughter, the son that you need me to be in this season of your life? And if you're falling short and they tell you some things, say, right now I don't have the capacity to meet those needs, but this is what I can do. This is what I'm willing to do. And see if you can meet somewhere in the middle. But accountability, we all need to continue to grow in it. It stretches us, it lifts us up higher. We vibrate at a different level. So, today in the Orange Room, accountability. How are you being accountable and held accountable to be the best version of yourself? I love you. Have a great day and an awesome week. Thanks for watching. Be sure to catch us next time. You know why? Because there's a meeting in the Orange Room and we want to see you there. Be sure to share this podcast. Tell somebody. Look for us on Facebook, YouTube, and anywhere that you can get your streaming and podcast, because we will be there in the place. We'll have special guests joining us in the Orange Room for some good conversation. So, if you have a comment, have a question, or just want something to say in the Orange Room, be sure to email me at imagineyoumedia@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Go be great.